What do Rashford's goals against Tottenham and Atalanta this season, as well as his goal against Tottenham in 2019, all have in common? Well, I'm going to break down all of those goals later on in the video, and analysing why I think they're relevant to making Marcus Rashford great again. So I think any Manchester United fan, or anyone who's watched Manchester United regularly this season, will say that Marcus Rashford is dramatically underperforming what we know he can do. In the analysis I did of Manchester United's games against Newcastle and Wolves, I spoke about Marcus Rashford's lack of ability on the ball, overhitting passes and not playing passes at the right time, which slows or breaks down the whole United attack. And if you think back throughout this season, it's really been a constant in his game. If we look at Rashford's FB ref report over the last 365 days, when compared against every other attacking midfielder or winger in Europe's top 5 leagues, we can see that he ranks in the 69th percentile for non-penalty goals, with 0.30 per 90 minutes, which is an overperformance of his non-penalty XG rate, where he sits in the 62nd percentile with 0.23 per 90, which is an overperformance of 0.07 per 90, and he ranks in the 68th percentile for shots, the 22nd for expected assists, the 49th for shot creating actions, the 42nd for progressive passes, the 53rd for progressive carries, and the 88th for dribbles completed. Now before I go on, just a reminder that I do have a Patreon where for £5 a month you can get 2 exclusive videos each week, plus a weekly newsletter. One of those videos that I mentioned will be a Manchester United based video, the other will be on a topic voted for by Patreons, so if you do want to help support the channel, that would be very much appreciated. I have already got some other videos out, such as my video on Dusan Vlahovic, which is the second part to the video I released on my YouTube channel, where I look at which clubs should sign him and where he should go from his own point of view. So if you want that exclusive content and to help support the channel, definitely click the link in the description below. It is very much appreciated, but even just watching the video for the whole length is very much appreciated as well. Now whilst these metrics do show that over the past year or so, Rashford has been putting out a decent level of output, when I analyse the numbers in a little more detail, you'll understand why I would be concerned. So for his goal scoring metrics, he is ranking in the 60th percentile, which is decent for an attacking player. And he does overperform his non-penalty XG rate, which is always good for an attacking player as well. But I would say that these have to be a lot higher than just sitting in the 60th percentile, as I would like to see these in the 80s and even 90s. And this is because when we look at his chance creating metrics and his ball progression metrics, they do sit very low in comparison to what you would expect from a top level attacking midfielder. If Rashford's expected assist rate, shot creating actions and progressive metrics such as passes and carries were a lot higher, I wouldn't be as concerned with his goal scoring metrics, but because they're sitting quite low, this tells me that the only real output that Rashford provides for Manchester United is when he's scoring goals himself. And this is a fundamental reason why I think Marcus Rashford is a forward and not an attacking midfielder. See, when he plays as an attacking midfielder in behind the forward line, likely sitting between the lines of the opposition system, he receives the ball in congested areas where quick into play and first time passing are most important, and these aren't Rashford's best attributes. And when he receives the ball on the flank, he sometimes has too much time to think. Now this may sound strange, but it was a similar problem that Theo Walcott had at Arsenal, and it seems to be a weird situation where the more time certain players have, the worse decisions they make. Theo Walcott was excellent at making runs in behind the opposition's back line, getting into goal scoring positions where he had a split second to think and then pull off the finish, and often he would actually do it, looking like he had the composure and finishing ability of a top level player. But Walcott suffered from the same issues as Marcus Rashford when he was played in the midfield line. What we often see Marcus Rashford do is receive the ball on the left side, and you'll often see maybe Luke Shaw making an overlapping run, and Rashford seems to take too long to pick which pass he's going to make. He often cuts inside, looking for a long range shot or a pass into the box, but he gets crowded out and often loses the ball or is forced to play the ball backwards. And this is a great example of when Marcus Rashford seems to be caught in two minds, and in the end he does neither of what he wants to do, and this just leads to United's attack breaking down. If we look at the moments this season when Rashford has looked like a top level player, it's when it comes to his finishing in the box. The two clear examples in my mind are against Tottenham and Atalanta. Against Atalanta, the ball goes into Bruno Fernandes, and Marcus Rashford, for all his flaws on the ball, is very good without the ball, knowing exactly when to make these diagonal runs in behind the opposition's back line. He times his run perfectly, and his pace just drives him away from the opposition defenders. And once he gets into this position on the left side of the box, it's like everything in his brain and body connects, and he has the ability to just calmly open up his body and slot it into the bottom corner. And this isn't a one-off either. He did the same same against Tottenham. When Matic found his run, he managed to keep onside, timed his run perfectly, and got into the same position, and once again opened up his body, slotting the ball into the far corner. And it's this sort of movement and finish where Rashford excels, and so if United want to get Rashford back to his best, they need to find a system and role that allows Rashford to get into these sorts of positions more often. But I don't think Rashford solely has to play from the left side. We saw against Tottenham in 2019, in the goal that I mentioned at the start of the video, when Pogba picked it up in his own half in the centre of the field and found Rashford's driving run down the right side, and Rashford, when he gets into the box, drills a ball hard and low across Lloris. And it's this sort of finish, along with the finish from the other side where he opens up his body, which are Rashford's trademark finishes. Another example of Rashford being able to drive the ball across the keeper low and hard into the bottom corner was against PSG in the Champions League. And so ideally, to get Rashford to score more goals, United need to get him more shooting opportunities from the left or right side of the box. Now, as I've alluded to throughout this video, I don't think this can be in the line behind the forward line, which are the attacking midfielders who sit between the lines, as particularly in Rangnick's system, the two who play behind the two centre forwards move narrow infield into central attacking midfield positions between the lines where they can receive the ball, and then their primary job is to create by playing these through passes for the centre forwards. But as I've said, Rashford doesn't have the weight of pass or vision to be able to perform this role to the same level that someone like Bruno Fernandes or Jadon Sancho or even Paul Pogba or Donny van de Beek can. That's why in this 4-2-2 system that Rangnick seems to be moving forward with, I think Rashford has to be used as one of the two centre forwards, likely alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, from around 2016 when Rashford first burst onto the scene to around 2018-2019, there was a debate about whether Rashford and Martial were centre forwards or wide attackers. Now, I did make a video earlier on in the season looking at how Manchester United can make Martial great again, so if you want a comparison between Martial and Rashford, check that video out, it will be linked in the description. But in regards to Rashford, because of his movement and finishing ability being a lot better than his chance creating and ball progressing metrics, he has to be considered a forward. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be a lone striker, a centre forward, playing up front on his own, as if we look at the Red Bull systems in previous years, I think Rashford's very comparable to someone like Timo Werner. At RB Leipzig, we often saw Timo Werner making runs around the centre-back, drifting into the channels and making penetrating runs in behind the back line, and this gave Leipzig the opportunity to play those long direct passes into the channels to find Werner's run. And when Werner would get released and latch on to the through pass, he would often get into these wide shooting positions around the box, and this is exactly the same sort of positions where Rashford is so good at finishing from. So I think that if Rangnick can get some ideas from how Timo Werner was used at RB Leipzig, then he can apply these to Marcus Rashford. See, even though many people will categorise Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford as attacking wide players, they are actually just two very different players that just happen to play in the same position, but thrive in completely different roles. See, as opposed to Rashford making these runs in behind the back line and getting into finishing positions, Sancho is much more of a playmaker and ball progressor, able to receive the ball to feet. His interplay in the middle third is very good, and particularly down the flanks as well. And his weight of pass and vision around the box is substantially better than Marcus Rashford's. This is why I would say that Marcus Rashford does suit the two forward positions in the 4-2-2, or Jadon Sancho is better in one of the two attacking midfield positions in behind the centre forwards, where he can drift between the lines, receive the ball, and create and progress the ball into the final third. But the main issue for Rashford is, if he is to play in those two forward positions, is he actually good enough at the minute to play there for Manchester United? Because it's fair to say he has got a lot of competition for those positions. So really, Manchester United have Mason Greenwood, Edinson Cavani, Marcus Rashford, and even Anthony Martial fighting for one spot alongside Cristiano Ronaldo up front. At the moment, I would say that Edinson Cavani is definitely the front runner for that centre forward position because of his overall work rate with and without the ball, his ability to hold up play, and his finishing ability when he gets chances in the box. And you'd probably have to put Mason Greenwood in second place in that list as well, because despite going through a bit of a rough patch, he is United's best finisher other than Ronaldo, and he, like Rashford, is much better playing in the forward line than playing in one of the attacking midfield positions behind Ronaldo. And because he is still quite young, United can be more lenient with his rough patch, as he could improve significantly in the next few seasons, whereas someone like Marcus Rashford has had chance over the past few seasons, and he hasn't really kicked on and developed into the top level player that we would have expected when he first broke onto the scene. Over the next half of the season, I would definitely play Marcus Rashford solely in that centre forward position, playing as the most advanced of the two, with Ronaldo potentially dropping off and being the link man in the attack, whilst Rashford plays as a wide forward in a similar sort of role to how Timo Werner was deployed at RB Leipzig, making those runs in behind the back backline, offering the penetration in behind the opposition's defensive line so that United can play these through balls that they do like to play under Rangnick. And if Rashford can get into these goal scoring positions and he can put away a few more chances, increase his goal scoring metrics, then I definitely think Rashford can get back to his best that we have seen over the past few seasons. Rashford is now 24, he'll be 25 in October, so now is the time where he's got to move into that top level bracket. We've seen players over the past decade or so show promise from the age of around 20 to 24 but never really push on into that top level bracket, and Rashford's got to improve his on the ball ability when he's in the middle third. He's got to improve his decision making, weight of pass and overall interplay, whether this is on the flanks or between the lines, and by developing these attributes this will give him more versatility, able to play in a number of different roles in different types of systems, which is obviously going to help his career. But fundamentally he's got to knuckle down and get the best out of these best attributes, which is his movement in behind the back line and his finishing ability from wide areas of the box. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon for exclusive content, it will be linked in the description, along with some other videos that I think you may find interesting as well.